Welcome to the Learning to Love podcast. I'm Paul Moschetta.
And I'm Evelyn Moschetta. We are marriage counselors who are married and have been living and working together for over 40 years.
Eileen and Carl had been married for 6 years with 2 children when Carl called to say his marriage was hanging by a thread. In fact, he wasn't sure Eileen would even agree to come in. We've been angry for so long, she doesn't believe it can change. During their first session, Eileen began by saying,
I don't understand what went wrong with us. We have everything any couple could hope for. 2 wonderful children, a beautiful home, friends, close family, and enough financially.
I told you 2 years ago I wasn't happy, and your response was that you were happy, so I must have a problem and I should go see somebody and get help. That did it for me. I got so angry I shut down. It's like a switch turned off inside me.
So that's your solution? I try to talk to you, but you just won't let me in. You've got all these restrictions. I can't ask questions. I've got to make statements. Then when I make statements, you say, what do you want me to do about it? It feels like you just don't like me.
You just won't hear my needs. I want to do things. I want a companion. I want to be able to talk about things other than the kids. We live 2 separate lives. You won't do anything with me. You won't work out with me. You won't play tennis. All you want to do is go to a movie, which I hate to do, or go out with your friends. I can't talk to you about anything. You get so defensive.
Well, you never have anything positive to say to me. All you do is put me down. Why would I want to do things with you? So that you can abuse me? I've put up with it for too long. When was the last time you showed me some kindness? That's what I want. Some kindness, some affection.
Well, you're not going to get it by being nasty. Did it ever occur to you that I want the same thing? I want some attention too?
Then show me that's what you want by treating me like someone you love, not just someone else you can boss around.
Eileen and Carl's marriage, like most intimate relationships, is a work in progress. But there are some absolute realities that can be stated unequivocally when it comes to intimate relationships.
Accumulated anger kills love. This is an undeniable fact. When the pain of being together begins to outweigh the pleasure, each new layer of anger brings you closer to a point of no return. Accumulated anger kills love by destroying trust and creating hurt and blame and guilt. No matter how strong your love is initially, a steady diet of anger and bitterness can close your hearts to each other permanently. So as a couple, it is essential that you understand anger and how to deal with it in your relationship.
That's what we'll be talking about in today's podcast and probably next time also, because there's a lot to cover on this topic. You may remember that last time we talked about a survival mentality, the state of mind where my insecure ego is running the show. Well, that insecure ego is not conducive to a healthy, intimate relationship, and it certainly doesn't help us handle anger. In fact, my insecure anger mishandles anger in one of 4 ways. The first is by venting. It's commonly understood that it's not good to repress your feelings, but some people take that advice as a reason and a justification to vent their anger. That's the approach where it's an over-emotional, shoot from the hip, blast everything and everybody approach to handling angry feelings. It doesn't work. It creates more difficulties because in the heat of that kind of anger, hurtful things get said that later can't be taken back. It reinforces fighting as a way of coping. and it creates a chain reaction that builds upon itself and really just pumps up anger to even more of a destructive degree.
A second way that we tend to abuse anger is by holding on to it for excessively long periods of time. Some of us nurse our anger. We become preoccupied with it, brooding over it for days or weeks. Sometimes we even forget what it was that got us angry in the first place. Holding on to our anger this way ensures that we always have some stored up anger tucked away, ready to be added to whenever a new frustration or disappointment comes along. Storing grievances is a way of using anger to create distance when one of us feels threatened by too much closeness. Holding on to anger can also lead to all sorts of physical problems, from migraine headaches to ulcers. The ego then makes good use of these by seeing them as further proof of our suffering and our victimization.
Now, another way our insecure ego mishandles anger is by denying it. Some of us are so afraid of angry feelings that we deny ever being angry at all. We may be conscious of our anger momentarily, but we quickly banish it to the outskirts of our awareness. Instead of being direct about how we're feeling, we have our anger come out in other ways, like seemingly innocent teasing or biting sarcasm, or in behaviors designed to induce guilt or envy.
The fourth way we are likely to misuse our angry feelings is to project them onto the other person. We take our own hostile and aggressive feelings, push them outside ourselves, and attribute them to our partner. We make our partner the persecutor and ourself the victim. This is the blame game we play when we can't admit our own faults and refuse to accept responsibility for our own behavior. In reality, we own the anger, but rather than see and face it in ourselves, we dump it off, making it the other person's problem.
These are all ways our insecure ego uses anger to maintain control. Venting belittles my partner, puts them down. It's an attempt to make them feel small. Nursing our anger, holding on to it in silent suffering, is an attempt to get the upper hand by making our partner feel guilty. Denying anger, having come out in disguised ways, such as teasing or sarcasm, catches our partner off guard and gives us the advantage. And projecting our anger makes someone else the bad guy, the perpetrator, while we get to be the victim or the martyr.
Okay, so now it's really important to know that anger is a secondary emotion. Beneath anger is pain. The pain of hurt, fear, guilt, and frustrated desire. But anger, unlike the other feelings, has an element of power associated with it. Being angry often carries with it a feeling of strength and aggression. Most of us don't feel strong when we're hurt, afraid, guilty, or frustrated in our desires. In fact, these emotions have us feeling especially vulnerable. So what my ego does, it associates hurt, fear, guilt, and frustration with being weak and chooses instead to ally itself with anger. Anger is the ego's favorite choice because power gives the illusion of security and control, which my ego self craves. To limit the potential negative effects of anger, You have to take it out of the hands of your ego.
Now, I just want to make the point here that anger in and of itself is not the problem. It's the way we deal with anger that causes us difficulties. And an effective way to come to a better understanding about anger and the role it's going to play in our relationship is to see it as a warning signal, a red flashing light that reminds us to go slow, to be careful with one another, because if we're not, we could make a mess right now between us. And from that awareness, we agree to certain basic agreements between us about how we're going to approach anger. And the first is that we give each other permission to be angry, recognizing that anger is going to occur in our relationship. So I'm not going to make you wrong if you're angry. I'm not going to blame you if you're angry. I'm not going to make you feel guilty for being angry.
And I'm not going to be frightened by your anger.
That's
Very
right.
often, right, in relationship, we become frightened when we see our partner is harboring angry feelings towards us.
And we're not going to be frightened because we're going to teach you in this and the next lessons how to have anger not be a scary element in our relationship. And it is for many couples. So the first is to make an agreement that we give each other permission to be angry. And we want to be told about any angry feelings immediately.
Yes.
So they don't fester and they don't have a chance to go underground.
Right, right. The second important principle here, make a pact that you will not attack each other verbally or certainly not physically when you're angry. This is of utmost importance. You must make the pledge to each other and keep it. When you do that, you will not contaminate your relationship with hostile negative energy. Don't use anger as an opportunity to say things that you know will hurt the other. Always, always, always safeguard each other's self-esteem, no matter how angry you may get. When you come through for each other in these ways, then you can hear anger without getting defensive.
And a third and final agreement that we make, we agree that any anger in our marriage or our committed intimate relationship belongs to both of us. We together jointly create the fabric of our relationship. If one of us is in emotional pain, the other person isn't separate from it. This means that when one of us is angry, the other person doesn't simply dismiss it by saying, it's your problem, deal with it. You agree that you'll actively help one another when anger is present, because it does take a cooperative effort to deal with the emotion of anger and then, as we'll find out later, the issues from which it springs.
Yes. So the idea is really learning how to become very skillful with that hot emotion that overfloods you. And then you do, as you said before, Paul, you vent it, or you hold it, or you repress it. It's really important to almost have anger welcomed when it arises so that you can skillfully deal with it.
And that skillful dealing of it, we call carefronting anger. Carefronting means expressing and working through angry feelings in a way that doesn't damage the basic trust and love that you have for one another. When carefronting anger, you extend patience and kindness to one another in the midst of feeling angry. That's the difference.
Right, so instead of confronting anger, you carefront anger. And so you give each other, especially when that hot emotion is arising, careful attention.
When you carefront, it allows you to express anger in a non-blameful, non-attacking way. It helps you make best use of your conflicts by using them as raw material for growing psychologically and stronger together as a couple. This is the kind of togetherness that lights up every aspect of your life. When you're not angry and you're in sync with each other emotionally, physically, mentally, sexually, every aspect of your life goes better. Work, your friendship relationships, your creative endeavors,
Your health.
your handling children, it all goes much smoother when in that basic unity between us there isn't a simmering anger. So this is a complex issue. We're going to talk about it more next time.
Yes.
And show you how to resolve conflicts of needs and be experts at defusing anger between you.
Thank you so much for listening.